Welcome to The Testament, a podcast that spotlights the amazing real-life stories of everyday people who've been transformed by their surrender to Jesus Christ. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of one of the many miraculous before and after accounts of lives forever changed by encountering the Savior.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Testament Podcast. We are doing something new for the next couple of weeks, and I know it's been a long time since we pushed out an episode. In fact, Gene Getz was my last episode, which I thought was a great place to kind of stop for a minute. Loved Gene, had a great time with that, but I need a little bit of time off for the summer, and we're kind of getting back to it now. And me and Danny Myall here. I've got Danny with me. Hi, Danny.
Hello, Jeff.
Danny's going to be with me for a little while. Going through these podcasts. I'm happy to bring him on a board and just kind of go through some of the stuff that's racking my brain and then get our guests back on as well. But one of the things I wanted to do, and I've been wanting to do this for kind of a long time and just never really got around to it, and that is to go through some of our Bible characters that we know and kind of give a testimony from their perspective, right? So like, for example, this episode, we're going to talk about Joseph, right? So we want to kind of give a testimony and brag on God a little bit through the life of Joseph. And so that's something that Danny and I are going to try to tackle today. It's probably going to take 2 episodes to get through Joseph. And then at some point, we'll do another Bible character as well and intermingle and intermix our guests throughout there. But I want to kind of do that. We're going to try it out, see how it goes. I'm happy to be back doing the podcast. I know Danny is too. Told Danny a long time ago that we were going to start back again. And Danny was like, yeah, I want to do it with you, man. I want to do it with you. And then I went dead silent on him for like months.
Yeah. It seemed like forever, but I'm glad to be here now.
Yeah, I'm sure he was like, I think he quit. I think Jeff quit. Anyway, so I'm not going to quit till God says to quit. I might take a break, but I'm not going to quit till God says quit. So here we go. Man, Joseph. I think, gosh, it's kind of hard. I think when I was kind of laying out some ideas on what to talk about with Joseph, it's like, man, there's so much, and so I think what we're going to try to do is just kind of hit a couple of little things and then see what we get to that. So like right off the bat, Danny, who's Joseph? Like now we're going to go like right at chapter 37 of Genesis, right? So chapter 37 of Genesis is when we really start talking about Joseph. But what do we know about him without getting the chapter 39 and 40 and all that other stuff? What do we know about Joseph in chapter 37?
Well, just kind of leading up to that, I mean, Joseph was one of Jacob's sons, what we'll see is that he's kind of a favored son, if you will. And Jacob was a shepherd and led flocks and things, and Joseph was just brought up doing that, so to speak. But he was really young. When we see in chapter 37, he's a young guy, still trying to make his way and still trying to figure things out with his older brothers and all who had something against him, which we'll talk about. But Joseph was a product of Jacob's favorite wife, Rebekah. Yeah. And so there's some of that, and it's obvious for whatever reason, that being one of the main reasons. But for that reason and some others, I suppose Joseph was one of Jacob's favorites.
Rebecca or Rachel?
Oh, sorry, Rachel.
I have to check myself. Okay. So let's kind of outline who his brothers are real quick. If you go back to chapter 29 and 30 of Genesis, it goes into great detail about who birthed who and who was whose son and whose daughter. He had 12 sons and 1 daughter, and who the mothers were and everything. However, Scripture did a great thing for us in chapter 35, starting at verse at the end of 21, or actually 22, at the end of 22, of giving us a summary of his 12 brothers, right? So it says Jacob had 12 sons. Sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, as well as Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. And then verse 24, the sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. Benjamin being the little one, right? He was the like the younger of the two, I think. And then verse 25, the sons of Bilhah. How do you say that name? Bilhah?
Bilhah, yeah.
Bilhah. Rachel's servant were Dan and Naphtali. And then the sons of Zilpah, Leah's servant, were Gad and Asher. So those are all the brothers. So Joseph, in chapter, going back now to chapter 37, I think it says he's 17 years old. Yeah, verse 2. Joseph's 17. Benjamin's the younger of the two that were born of Rachel. And you hit it right on the nail. That's why he's the favorite of the son, because he was born of Rachel, right?
Yeah.
So what do we see with these two sons here? Or not these two sons, I'm sorry. What do we see? Verse 2, this is the account of Jacob. He's 17 years old, taking care of flocks with his brothers. He's now a youngster working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wife. Joseph brought back a bad report about them to their father. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you know what it sounds to me like is he's ratting out his brothers. You know, they weren't doing a good job. They weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They weren't watching the flock. What exactly that means. It wasn't good. And so here he comes running back, and you know I believe that he's immature and kind of naive at this point. You know, if you I can't imagine being the brother that comes back and rats out everything you're doing to your parents. You know,
yeah.
And so it would have been better for him if he would have just come back and said, you know what, Dad, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, but I don't even think. I mean, it's great they put this bad report in here, but I don't even think that's the whole reason. Like, yeah, he came back and brought a bad report, but I'll bet you anything, for as long as Joseph could speak, that's probably what he's been doing to his brothers the whole time anyway.
Oh, I agree.
Not just this report here.
No, I think you're probably right. Yeah, and because I would imagine that he knows, that he's got the favor of his father. You know, he probably realizes that or senses that in some way or another. And in order to stay on his good side, or to stay the favored son, I wonder if there's any of that that's going on in his mind. I'm just going to do everything, play by the rules, by the book, and I'm going to, so that I can remain in my father's good graces. Which, by the way, we all ought to probably do, right? Obey our fathers and and our parents. Yeah.
So I'll go on here at verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph, Israel being the other name for Jacob, right? So Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was a son born to him late in life, and he made a special tunic for him. This is the robe of many colors, right? So verse 4, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated Joseph and were not able to speak to him kindly. So yeah, tattletale, I think that's a part of it too. But, according to verse 4 here, it's like when they saw that they weren't the favorites, when Joseph was the favorite. Why is that a problem, though, that Joseph is the favorite? And I'm thinking more culturally from that time.
Yeah. So I believe it has so much to do with the idea that he's one of the youngest. Reuben was the oldest. And so why would Reuben have not? And culturally back in that time, it would have been Reuben that would have gotten that coat of many colors. Because that coat of many colors, that would have been something that was seen as obviously as a favorite thing, but it was also something that was an honor to receive, and it would have made it known that, hey, this is my child, the one that's going to be the one that's going to take over, and that sort of thing. So it kind of leads to an understanding of privilege for that person. But for some reason in their mind, they don't understand it all. They don't understand that, hey, this is, we all are brothers from different mothers, And and so we're struggling with all this. We don't understand it all, but all I know is that or we know is that culturally this is messed up.
Yeah.
And so you're right. It's a cultural thing for sure, and they don't understand that. It just, so therefore it's just, rather than going to like Jacob and saying, "Dad, what's up?" They kind of take it out on Joseph.
And now Reuben, prior to this, Reuben being the oldest, he's already screwed up. I mean, like he's already, he's already messed up bad, right? He slept with his dad's concubine or servant or whatever it was. Which during that time frame, it did a couple things by him doing that. First of all, it was Bilhah, is that her name?
Yes.
So what it did by him doing that, first of all, it kind of ruined any chances of her becoming more, what's the word I'm looking for? More favored than Rachel, right? So any chances she had of becoming more favored from Rachel was done at that point. And then the other thing too is, which is interesting because we'll see this again later, but it's also, when you do something like that, it's a play for the leadership. It's a play for for control of the clan, right? For control of or later on we'll see it, a control of the kingdom. That's what Absalom did too when he tried to take over the kingdom from David. He did the same thing. And so I don't know what the reason was that Reuben did this, but he's already like in bad graces. But between Reuben and Joseph, you have, what is that? 10 more people, 9 more people, right? Yeah, so I can see if Joseph is being the favorite here, it doesn't really matter. Like you go through all this list, and everybody who was in line for anything has been totally and completely skipped. So that's a lot to think about. Now Joseph's 17. I have a 17-year-old son.
Yeah.
I feel like Joseph should be aware of his brother's feelings toward him. And you would think might be a little bit cautious about the way he goes about presenting himself or the things that he says. What do you think about that aspect of it?
Well, yeah, you would think so. It's one of the things that, in reading this for this and in the past, you kind of wonder about, because you think about back in those days, way back when, everybody that was created in the very beginning, obviously Adam and Eve, and then here we are these centuries later, but people grew up quickly. We sharp. We were as strong and as sharp of mind as you could possibly be, and so he was smart. And obviously, we're going to see that he's smart. So you would think that he would have understood that. But I do wonder if there's just not, because you'd like to think, okay, well, is there arrogance in that, or is it a combination of arrogance and being naive, or what is it? And it's really kind of easy to say, well, he was just an arrogant guy, or whatever. But I also think that he was just very young. But
and I don't even know if arrogance is the word I'm looking for. Maybe ignorance. Yeah. That's probably a good word for it. Could have been either way. Could have been either one of those, right? I don't know. It's kind of like, okay, so he shares his dreams. Let's just keep going. He shares his dreams because you're right on track. Where we're getting here. Joseph had a dream. When he told her brothers about it, they hated him even more. And we all know what the dreams are, right? So there's 2 different dreams, and it's all about, at some point, he's going to rule over them, and they're going to bow down to him. I don't even think at 10 years old that I would share such a dream with my family, But but he's 17, and this is where I kind of get into the whole ignorance thing, maybe. Because maybe he just doesn't realize the magnitude of what his dreams represent or mean. In one sense, I say that, but later on when we talk about Joseph interpreting the dreams of Pharaoh, he was spot on. So right. I'm wondering, and I'll take your opinion on this, of course, but I'm wondering did he just not know his the magnitude of his dreams this time, or do you think he knew exactly what he was doing?
Yeah, I would have to think that he didn't really understand exactly what that meant. I mean, how could he? I mean, in reality, because if you think about it, I think he realizes that that they are a faithful family. They believe in God. They believe that God ordains their steps and guides them and is faithful to them. However, I don't think that there's any possible way he could have known exactly what that meant. Because how is it that my family's gonna, bow down to me and all that? There's no way in the world he could have known that, understood how
Seems
that was going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, when we first kind of feel like that God is leading us to do something, and we're like, okay, wow, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't have the ability to do that. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But okay, God, let's go. And so all along the way, you're kind of figuring it out. So there's so many things that had to take place. From point A to point B, so many things that had to take place between the time that he receives that, and then obviously, the time that comes to fruition, where where he does rule over them. So I don't think there's any way that he could have possibly known exactly what that meant. What do you think?
Well, something that's interesting, and we're not. I mean, we're going to get to it also. But the Bible doesn't really talk about Joseph's feelings through all of this. Through his whole story, really. You don't see good, you don't see bad, you don't see happy, you don't see sad, you don't see... it doesn't really address Joseph's feelings. I think that would have been a great thing to hear, for God to add that into Scripture, to kind of help us understand really what's going through Joseph's mind on this. I don't know. I think that he knew something was up with the dreams. I don't think you just tell everybody what your dreams were all the time. I think he knew something was up with them. But again, I'm with you. Like, it doesn't even make sense that would happen. So maybe he didn't feel threatened by that, by sharing it, because there wasn't even a way that would happen. However, his brothers felt threatened by it. And you'll even see Jacob later that gets like all upset about these dreams after the second dream. Yeah. That they're getting upset that he would even remotely say that, oh, you think that we're going to bow down to you. So we have family strife going on here, right? So we have, they hate him because he's the favorite. They hate him because he's a tattletale. And they hate him because now he's claiming that one day they're all going to bow down to him. So when you have brothers that are mad at you, what do? Well, you don't do what they did. I didn't. Right?
No. Well, so I have two half brothers. So I was raised as an only child, but I don't know. So I don't know what it would be like to have a sibling that. Because every once in a while you hear like you got multiple siblings in a family, and one of them will say, "Oh, well, we all know that this one is Dad's favorite," or something like that. So I've never experienced that, but we hear people talk about it, sometimes jokingly, but other times not. So I wonder what is that like for somebody, that for 2 or 3 brothers and sisters to really believe that this other person is the favorite. And what does that kind of conjure up inside of you?
Yeah.
It had to be as the favorite child, Jeff. What does that feel like to be the favorite child?
Yeah, right. It had to be. It had to be enough, and I really don't know. Did we really make all 10 brothers ahead of him mad at him? Or did we make 1 or 2 of them mad, and then we had groupthink among the rest? You know what I'm saying? Where we just kind of all talked about it and just made everybody mad by talking about it. That's the part I don't want to know. I don't know. I mean, Scripture just flat out says his brothers hated him. So we do have the conglomerate of. I mean, you got to do something to get 10 of your siblings mad at you to the point where it says, and Scripture says it hated you, right? So in order to get that bad, I mean, obviously something. It's more than just. I think it's more than just dreams. But like I said, it's you're a tattletale. You're the favorite. Dreams. I mean, colors culturally, when you're wearing multiple colors like that, it was like royalty, right? I mean, that's like not everybody got colorful. Anyway,
no, because what I picture is what we all see in the movies and on TV things. Everybody's just wearing like a look like a burlap bag, and just tan and brown and very drab, and and then all of a sudden here comes this dude showing up in this multicolored thing.
So verse 11, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept in mind what Joseph said. So the brothers they're mad, they hate him, now they're jealous, right? So it's like, we want what you got. We want daddy's love. We want the big colorful overcoats and whatever. We want what you got coming to you. Jacob, what I think is interesting is he says this part. First, if you look back just a couple of verses, one verse, verse 10. When he told his father and his brothers, his father rebuked him, saying, "What is this dream that you had? Will I, your mother, and your brothers really come and bow down to you?" Verse 11, his brothers were jealous, but the end of verse 11, but his father kept in mind what Joseph said. So he's mad. He's like, "What? Are we really going to bow down to you?" And then it's like I can see this in a movie, right? We are not going to bow down to you. And then they pan into his face while he's going,
Yeah, wait.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's the vision we're getting here.
Yeah, no, that's a good catch. I think one of the things that in thinking about that, Jacob, Israel, has walked with God a long time now. He's seen a lot, I don't think that he discounts, anything that God may be putting on somebody's heart. I learned that, years ago. I used to think, when somebody tell me about their experiences, and some of them to me at the time would sound kind of weird or odd, or I don't know about that, but then something kind of happened to me that was like, okay, well that's kind of out of the ordinary, and so so now when people tell me some of these crazy things that happen to them and they believe it's of God, and I'm like, yeah, it probably is. I can see that, and so. Jacob is probably like, okay, is that really going to happen? But now, wait a minute. I'm not going to discount what God might be doing here. So I'm going to file that somewhere. Yeah.
Speaking of Jacob, you talk about Jacob being with God for a long time. I think it's chapter 27. Not 27. Trying to find so Jacob steals Esau's birthrights, right?
That's I think it's 27.
Bowl of soup or something. So and I heard a sermon on Jacob and Esau not too long ago. Did you find it? Was it 27?
It's 27. Yeah.
So I heard a story on Jacob and Esau, and it was like, God chose one and hated the other, and Bible says he hated Esau. Jacob got the blessing, right? But Jacob kind of stole the birthright of Esau by Esau was starving. Jacob said, "Oh, I got this soup here, or lentil, whatever you want to call it. And I'll give it to you for your birthrights," right? So that was kind of a sneaky little trick there. But they were both kind of sneaky also. So like neither one of them really deserved the blessing. But Jacob ended up with it. And so I think from a perspective of that, knowing Jacob's history and kind of where he was and everything, I think looking at Jacob now, that gives me cause and understanding as to why the end of verse 11, Jacob's like, I've seen God do some amazing things.
Right.
And I've seen God do some amazing things in my life when I was actually in the wrong to start with.
Right.
with Esau, and so God still blessed me despite all of that. And so I think Jacob, you're right. He's been with God so long. He's like, anything could happen,
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that, though? I don't know.
I don't
Prepare
either.
to hear that your son's going to.
Yeah. Well, and what does that look like? I mean, he could be real proud of that,
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah.
whatever that looks like. But to me, it would seem like it'd be just so far removed to think that, okay, well, he's going to rule, he's going to rule Egypt, he's going to rule over us. What is that? I mean, in their culture in that time, then, I mean, it's okay. So he's going to end up taking over the family, somehow,
Right.
some way. And so I can't imagine that they have conceived that, but he ends up. So I think he just files it away.
Yep, I agree. Verse 12. So when his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I will send you to them." "I'm ready," Joseph replied. So Jacob said to him, "Go now and check on the welfare of your brothers and of the flocks, and bring word to me." So Jacob sent him from the valley of Hebron. So at the beginning of this chapter, we see it says, let me just jump back because I'm digital here, so I'm going to slip back here, where it says, verse 2, 17 years old, he was taking care of the flocks with his brothers. Now we jump back to verse 12. So we know that he takes care of his flocks with his brothers. Now in verse 12, we find that he's not with his brothers and they're out taking care of the flocks. So he's not with them right now. Now Jacob's going to send them out to check on them and everything. Why do you think he was for so long, out with the flocks, but now he's not all of a sudden out with the flocks? Do you think that's by design? Maybe they left him and he didn't know that they went? Or what are your opinions on that?
I think they probably left him, because it wouldn't have been a secret. I don't think they would have just, because it takes a little bit to, the dust stirs and everything else, when the cattle start moving. And so I don't think it would have been a surprise. I think that they probably left him behind. That's just an opinion. Don't know, but
yep. So they've yelled at him. They've gotten mad at him. They got jealous at him. They hated him. I can only imagine, because I bet you anything. I mean, just looking at scripture the way it is right now, there's a lot missing. So they probably harassed him a lot, and then they started leaving him. Like, let's wake up early. Let's hit the fields, and we'll just leave Joseph behind. I get that, but again, scripture doesn't talk about Joseph's feelings. I wonder how much of this kind of dealing that Joseph can take. You know what I'm saying? How much can a regular person take with 10 of your brothers just at your throat the whole time and telling you, we're not going to serve you. We're not going to do this. You're not that. You're not as special as Dad says you are. I mean, who knows? I can only imagine the things that were said to him by his brothers.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think you're probably right. There was a lot that he went through, and it probably felt bad to him. I would imagine anyway that they left him behind. That they didn't want him along, and that would be hard for anybody to take. It's I guess to a lesser extent, it's you don't get chosen for the baseball team. You're out, picking sides and stuff like that. You're the last guy. Or you don't get chosen, and some one of the guys, I'll take him. I'll take Danny and see what we can do with him. That feels bad, and so. But I would imagine that to be basically kicked to the curb by your brothers like that would have been really hard, for sure.
But we don't know. We don't know.
We don't
because the Bible doesn't say how well he took it. I mean, we get some indications later in Egypt as to how well he's taken this.
Yeah,
but you're right. Right now, we're not getting anything right now.
One of the things. I'm sorry. One of the things that we can kind of get a sense of is that God is doing something in his life.
Yeah.
And I think to some degree he probably realizes that something is going on. And we see all through the bad things that happened, And of course, again, we don't have the whole picture, but we have enough of the picture. Of course, later on, we see that he's faithful. He is true.
Yeah.
And through everything that he went through. And so, we, here, I would imagine that, that started somewhere. I think that he is somebody who is faithful even now. He is truthful, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's telling the truth. He goes back and tells Dad. He doesn't lie for the brothers. He tells Dad the truth. He tells the truth in these dreams. Tells the truth about what he sees. And so, sometimes the truth is hard, for people to hear, but especially if they believe they are deserving of something that you actually got. So it's hard for them to hear. But I think that at least I get a sense that even though these things are difficult, I think that he is still faithful in that.
Yeah. Okay. So Joseph's been sent to Shechem to check on the boys. Go check on the boys, Dad says. He gets to Shechem. They're not there. Checks with some other dude. He's like, I think they went to Dothan. So Joseph now heads for Dothan. Now his brothers saw him from a distance. Why do you think they saw him from so far away? He's got this colored robe on that he keeps wearing. You can't miss this dude. Like,
he's
it's
got a
nobody
neon
but
light
Joseph.
strapped to him.
Yeah, it's like, and that's what takes me back to the whole like ignorance thing. Like maybe he just doesn't get it yet, because especially if the code of colors was like a reason for his problems with his brothers, he probably wouldn't sport that around, my guess would be. But no, they see him from afar. Verse 18, Joseph's brothers saw him from a distance. And so, again, there's, I can only imagine that conversation. Look, are you sure that's Joseph? Or really? There is nobody else that could be but Joseph. So anyway, so he sees them from a great distance, and before they reach them, they plotted to kill him. Whoa. Yeah. Like, that's pretty harsh, man.
Yeah.
So why do you think they went that harsh with it? No, my brother never did that.
Well, so let's back up for just a second, because here's something that to me that's kind of interesting. And of course, this always blows my mind when we're talking about these types of things. They go off, and so this total trip is about 50 or 60 miles.
Yeah. He's heading down to Hebron, right?
Yeah. So and so it's about a 50 or 60 mile trip altogether. And so, Dothan is about 10 to 15 miles from Shechem. Right. And so he gets to Shechem, and who is this guy? Who's this random dude that's there?
Yeah.
Because there's not like there's some guy standing at the Quick Trip on the corner, somewhere there's a million people. This is
not only is he a random dude, but he knows who they're talking about when he asks.
Yeah. And again, they weren't living like right next door to each other. So this is a long way away. And so I look at that and go, okay, God put this random dude there to guide, unfortunately, to guide Joseph, into his destiny. Right? It's kind of this weird thing. He kind of uses this dude and says, okay, well, no, they're over there. This is where you need to go. And so, he ends up guiding him to where they are. And then, of course, he walks up and, he's wearing that neon sign, that's hung around him with that robe and everything else. And, you can see it from however far away, and they start plotting. Yeah, that's a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing.
Man, you got me thinking, who is this dude?
Yeah.
Scripture could have easily said he wasn't at Shechem, so he found him at Dothan, Yeah.
Yeah.
They had moved from Shechem, and Joseph found him at Dothan. Yeah, who is this man?
Yeah, and again, it wasn't. So I know for me, if I walked down to the end of my street, and I was looking for somebody, looking for my wife or looking for my kid or whatever, I walked down, a block or two down to the end of the street, And they said, well, they're not here, but I saw them 2 blocks away. I'd be, oh, what, really? Another 2 blocks. I got to walk a whole other 2 blocks, to find them. But here it is. Here it is. And like, okay, that's 10 or 15 miles away. Okay, I'll just take off walking another, because it's it's literally a full day nearly of walking to find them. So those kind of things always blow my mind. How of course that's just the way it was back then. You did a lot of walking. There weren't very many fluffy people back then.
Right. So from Hebron to Shechem, you said it was 15 miles. From Shechem.
No, it's like 50 miles, isn't it?
Oh, I thought you said 15 from Hebron to Shechem.
No, I think it's more like 40 or 50 or some crazy thing.
And then from Shechem to Dothan, do we know our maps?
10 to 15.
So we're looking at a total of maybe 60 miles to get there?
Yeah.
Let's just assume 60 miles. Okay, so I just did on Google Maps from my house to you. So that's Burleson to Highland Village.
Yeah.
As the crow flies is 36 miles. Let's go farther then. Let's take this all the way up here to Denton. Denton's about 40 miles from my house. Let's go up to Sanger, Texas. There you go, 50 miles, Sanger, Texas. So that's like me driving up to Sanger, Texas, stepping out of my car and saying, hey, have you seen my brother?
Yeah.
He was supposed to have been here. And this guy happens to know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, God. Appreciate that. All right. Where am I at? Get back to my screens.
Brothers are plotting against him.
Okay. Yep. Here we are. Verse 17.
They're
Man said, good.
Well, apparently they're incensed by that. Because, we talked about, okay, did they leave him behind or was it a mistake or whatever? I think they intentionally left him behind. And then they see him coming at a distance and they're like, oh, really? All right, we're going to kill the guy now. We can't leave him behind. He's going to track us down. We're going to kill him. Yeah.
Well, and do we think that maybe they were supposed to go to Shechem and they decided to go on to Dothan to try to, basically avoid Joseph in case he was sent to Shechem to check on him?
No, I don't know.
Maybe they told the wrong dude in Shechem where they were going?
Yeah. Hey, we're going to Dothan, but don't. Yeah, some dude comes along trying to find us. Don't tell him. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that's got to be why the man was put in there in the first place. Yeah. That, maybe their job wasn't done in Shechem. They moved their flock to Dothan. Another 10 miles away or whatever. They moved their flock to Dothan so that Joseph could never find them wherever they went. And they just happened to tell this one dude, and that's why he's in the story, because that's how that's how Joseph knew where to go. Love it. All right, I'd like to know that guy's name.
Yeah.
Anyway, verse 18, they wanted to kill him. And they said to one another, here comes the master of dreams. Come, let's kill him. Let's throw him into one of the cisterns and say that a wild animal ate him, and we'll see how his dreams turn out then. So that's a good plot. Doesn't happen that way. Why not?
Well, so Reuben, he's like, no, we don't need to do that. Let's not shed blood. We don't need to do that. But let's make some money off the guy.
Yeah.
Let's make some money instead.
Yeah, it says too, doesn't it say that Reuben had ulterior motives here for that suggestion? Let's not take his life. Verse 22, continue, don't shed blood, throw him in a cistern. Reuben said this so he could rescue Joseph from them and take him back to his father. Yeah,
that's right.
So I think Reuben's trying to make good on his bad decision at this point. Restore himself, if you will, to Jacob.
Yeah.
By bringing Joseph, his favorite son, back. So that's how he convinced him not to do that. We throw this dude into a pit. I don't know. Look, what's the mindset, dude? What's the mindset of the brothers at this point? We just threw our brother into this pit. And then it says, let's see. They stripped him, threw him into the cistern. He's alive. And they sat down to eat their food. And when they sat down to eat their food, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Like, these brothers don't they literally do not care what they're
No.
doing to Joseph.
No.
But again, we don't hear or see the feelings of Joseph. Does he feel completely rejected? Is he sitting in the cistern going, all right, God, I'm just waiting for you to take care of business? You know, I would love for God to have kind of included some of Joseph's really strong feelings at this point. Because, I mean, what would you think? If you were the brother thrown in the pit, what would you think? Rejection?
God, well, yeah, but I wonder if in the back of his mind it's like, okay, well, they're going to teach me a lesson, and they're just messing with me, and they're going to pull me up out of here, and they're going to give me a sandwich, and everything going to be okay again, and maybe they're not going to like me, but they're not going to pick on me anymore, and all that. They're just going to, they're going to, hopefully, just get me out of here, and it'll go back to kind of sort of the way it was. They just want to teach me a lesson, and I don't think that he would have understood that, hey, they really want me dead. They want me gone. Some way, somehow, they want me dead. I don't think he could have been thinking that at all.
Do you think a normal person would have thought that way?
I don't know. I don't know that I would have. I mean, I think I would have just thought, I think I would have just been thinking, well, they're just, they're picking on me, and because I'm one of the younger brothers, and so they're just going to throw me in here and be mean to me, and, and then they'll pull me up at some point in time and feed me something. But, yeah, they obviously, they had something different in mind for him.
So Judah enjoys the profit here. What profit is it if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. This is verse 27. But let's not lay a hand on him, for after all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. Oh, whoa. You just plotted to kill the guy. You hate the guy. You're jealous of the guy. You made fun of the guy. You threw him in a cistern, and all of a sudden, but he is our brother, so, let's not kill him. Let's just sell him and make money off of him.
I think there could be something to be said. If that was me, I would have rather been dead than been sold off into slavery. And having to tolerate what he was going to have to go through, and we don't really know a whole lot about that, really. About what all he went through as a slave in the very beginning. And so I doubt he was treated very well. But yeah, I can't imagine. But I guess it does say something for him that they didn't want to kill him. They thought better of it. No, that's not really right. We don't have the right to take another person's life, especially our brother. And so let's not do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's God's intervention too. I mean, he's got a plan for Joseph, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
To lay it upon their hearts. I mean, even if Reuben had an ulterior motive for saving his life, God had a plan for saving his life, and I really think that Joseph gets his love for God from Jacob, and I think for some reason his dedication and devotion to God stuck more than it did with any of his siblings. And so I think even through all of this, when they sold him over to the Midianites for 20 pieces of silver, and they loaded him up and started walking him, I think that's probably when Joseph realized, man, they're not playing around.
Right,
and
yeah.
Again, we don't hear anything about Joseph's feelings, but I think at this point, I have to assume, based on, again, we're not jumping ahead just yet, but trying to use the examples from ahead, I have to assume that Joseph is probably, he's probably mad. He probably feels rejected, but he probably also knows, okay, God's got it. He's got it. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and God's in control of it.
Yeah.
I think he has to probably have that kind of mindset, just because we've seen that moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree. And I think it probably did get real. Well, obviously it did, but that 20 pieces of silver was not an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah.
That would have been I can't remember offhand, but I think that might have been worth. I mean, I don't know how many a month's worth of wages or more. So it was a fairly substantial amount of money. You couldn't retire on it, and live off of it forever, but it wasn't insignificant amount. And so they sold him off, got a decent amount of money, but I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, I think he's faithful. I think he just is got to be thinking that, okay, well, God's going to be with me in all of this, no matter what happens.
Yeah. Well, it gets interesting.
Yeah, it does.
But just 37. So, and I don't even want to go into what they did with his robe and the blood and telling Jacob that his son is dead. Jacob mourns for him greatly. I think there's a lot of symbolism there, I think, but we can see in just 37, before we even get into Joseph in Egypt, we can see God's intervention, his promise, his love, his plan kind of outlined a little bit, at least through Joseph and all these things. What would you say in chapter 37, those things that we just read, what would you say are like God's intervention, his promise, his love, his plan, or something that's kind of played out just in this chapter?
Oh, wow, yeah. I think that some of the things that you just kind of mentioned, but when you look at the fact that when he gets thrown into the pit and Judah says, "Hey, no, let's not kill him. Let's sell him off for profit." That's keeping him alive. I do believe, I agree with what you said, that God intervened, changed their heart. That's later on Joseph refers to that incident as what they meant for evil and selling him off, God meant for good. He's going to make something good out of that. I also think that guy we mentioned, that random guy that we don't know who he is, I think that's something else, because Joseph could have been wandering out for who knows how long trying to find him, but yet here's this random guy that's just stuck in the story that tells him where to go. I think that's God's intervention in that. But I also think that God, I believe, saw something in Joseph. That saw that he was faithful, saw that he was true, saw that he was loyal to his father, right? And apparently he's been faithful to God, and honoring God with his life. And so I think that God is honoring him. He's going to use him. And I think that the way that he's brought him through all of this stuff is evidence of that.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. And it's almost like, look, this is the start of the Israelite story, right? So we always talk about the Israelites and how they're like in a loop of, we trust God, we don't. We trust God, we don't. We trust God, we don't. Mm-hmm. And so the way that we see the Israelites, the brothers, treating one of their own, completely ungodly, right? And then the father is like totally mourning because Joseph is gone and claimed to be, dead. I think there's symbolism in there to kind of illustrate where they're headed, really, especially when you look at Joseph being the least. And then we jump into, he's the greatest, right? Brought down to the least by his brothers, not by God, not by his father or anything. Brought down to servanthood by his brothers. But we're going to go into chapter 39 here, and we're going to see a completely different kind of aspect. Instead of getting knocked down from an elevated position to a servanthood position, we're going to see an elevation from lower levels up to higher levels more than once.